Education is building and installing little free libraries at our city's 13 primary schools. This effort supports the goal of ensuring that all students are reading at grade level by third grade. Students at Woodruff Career and Technical Center designed, built, and are installing these little free libraries so that they are ready for the Slide into Summer reading program that encourages all students to read at least 20 minutes every day. Ribbon cuttings ceremonies for each of the little free libraries will be held throughout the district on Friday, May 17th. Come on out for the ribbon cutting and consider donating books to fill each library. Also have another one. Coffee with the superintendent. A reminder that the last coffee with the superintendent of the school year is tomorrow at 4 p.m. in room PLC 2 at the administration building. The theme will be Reimagining Learning. Please RSVP to Tracy Jones at tracy.jones@psd150.org if you are planning to attend.
Thank you. Mrs. Jackson.
Jameson School graduation. Jameson School will host graduation ceremonies for its class of 2019 on Wednesday, May 15th at 6 p.m. The ceremony will be held at Jameson. Congratulations to all the remarkable graduates.
Thank you. Other announcements? Mr. Shaw.
Teacher Appreciation Week. On behalf of the Peoria Public Schools Board of Education, administrators, and parents, we want to say thank you to the over 950 Peoria Public Schools teachers. This week is Teacher Appreciation Week, and Peoria Public Schools teachers do remarkable things every day for our students and their families. School administrators and PTOs have appreciation events planned during the week at each school. Please join us in saying thank you to our remarkable teachers. And also, City Council to recognize Peoria Public Schools artists. On Tuesday, May 14th at 6 p.m., the Peoria City Council will recognize Peoria Public Schools students who have artwork displayed at City Hall this year. Students and teachers from the following schools will be honored: Emmanuel High School, Peoria High School, Lindbergh, Roosevelt, and Lincoln. Teachers, students, and parents are encouraged to attend.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Mrs. Ross.
Courageous Pacers. Due to river flooding, the Courageous Pacers event on Friday, May 10th at 10 a.m. will be held at Peoria Stadium instead of the riverfront. Join 600 Peoria Public Schools students from 11 schools when they celebrate the culmination of their goals of walking 100 miles and lifting 10,000 pounds this year.
Thank you. Dr. Bob.
Buenas tardes, bienvenidos, good afternoon, welcome everyone. Lynn Lane, Directora del Año. Lynn Lane, Principal of the Year. Felicitaciones a la Directora de la Escuela Intermedia Sterling. Directora Lane fue recientemente nombrada Directora del Año de Escuelas Intermedias por el Illinois Principal Association por la región del Valle Central de Illinois, que incluye los condados de Peoria, Tazewell, Woodford, y Mason. Congratulations to Sterling Middle School Principal Lynn Lane, who was recently named Middle School Principal of the Year by the Illinois Principal Association for the Central Illinois Valley region, which includes Peoria, Tazewell, Woodford, and Mason counties. And give it up for Lynn Lane.
Thank you. Mr. Walter.
WCT Culinary Arts Team. Good luck to the Woodruff Culinary Arts Restaurant Management Team as they head to Washington, D.C. tomorrow for the National Pro Start Competition. These students have been developing and perfecting their Heavenly Dutch Food Truck concept, menu, business plan, financials, and marketing plan since November. We are proud of these students for showing the world Peoria culinary excellence. And just to comment on that, the Woodruff Alumni Association had their annual meeting at Woodruff. And I think the alumni still not happy that the school's closed are very happy that Woodruff is still being used for culinary and some other things. And they gave out 4 $2,000 scholarships, and they gave out 11 $500 scholarships to current WTC students, so that they're still recognizing that Warrior Pride is still there. But the Alumni Association has been raising money, in fact, to do that. So, good thing for them.
Kudos. And finally, Manual students at the state capitol. Congratulations to Manual Academy students Kiana Pittman, Phil Grutner, and Isaiah Baker, and their teacher Greg Gilson, who were selected to participate in the Tech 2019 Student Technology Showcase at the Illinois State Capitol building in Springfield tomorrow morning. The students will be demonstrating how the Fuse Studio, a STEAM lab, is being used in the classroom. The students in Gilson's class chose from a variety of STEAM challenges to learn about, including 3D printing, coding, circuitry, and much more. Fuse is student-driven and interest-based, which means students pick the challenges that interest them the most, and the Fuse ecosystem provides instructions and tutorials to guide their learning experience. So kudos. All right, that brings us to community contribution. I'm happy to welcome forward Mr. Brett Elliott, Principal of Richwoods, to recognize our community contributor.
I don't see our coaches. Get up here. Thank you. I'm going to let you speak. Okay, we are proud to be here today with our partnership with Richwoods Youth Baseball, Mr. Adler, and Coach Kelly and their team. This year, our partnership continues to get stronger, and so we had a joint effort fundraiser this year, and through their generosity, they are donating $2,000 to Richwoods High School to complete our new JV baseball fence. So we appreciate them. We have a token of our appreciation for all your support.
So I wasn't really prepared to speak, but the Richwoods Youth Baseball Association ranges from children 8U all the way up to 16U. Those 16U players are, I think, majority of the Richwoods High School sophomore baseball team. So this was, like Mr. Elliott said, a great joint effort for all of us to come together. It was a fun day watching basketball, eating good food, and we had a lot of community support. So yeah, on behalf of Richwoods Youth Baseball, we'd like to present this check to Mr. Elliott.
Yeah, all right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next on our agenda for awards and recognition, happy to bring forward Ms. Sarah Oakford for an Adopt a School presentation.
Good evening. Thank you for having me on the agenda tonight. It's my pleasure to welcome all of you in attendance to celebrate these great partners with the schools. We have 5 groups of churches, a retirement home. I think it's just that, churches and retirement home tonight. So we have, I'm going to take together all these teams receiving these awards have led efforts to provide mentorship, programs and materials, given the students opportunities to engage in activities that otherwise they may not have been able to, provided snack packs. 2 of these churches here are big providers of snack packs, so the kids will have food on the weekends. They've provided presents to our students, unconditional support, anticipated their needs, provided items for our staff. Mostly they support the students. When I say your name, if you could just stand up and be recognized, and then afterwards we will adjourn to the media room out that door for, of course, pictures. We always have to take pictures. So Salem Lutheran, I don't know, oh yeah, they're there. So this is Pastor Svensson and his group, and they partner with TJ. Also with TJ is University United Methodist Church, Reverend Paul Arnold. They are not here tonight. Another one that is not here is Bueller Home. They partner with the kids at TJ as well for reading. And then First Federated Church. Now, First Federated Church is considered an adopter at large because they do things for two schools. They are at TJ and they are at Whittier. And this is Reverend Frosty Crummel. I don't think Bishop Smith is here. Oh, you came in? Oh, you're hiding. Sorry, thank you for coming. So this is Bishop Leroy Smith, and he is at Manual, and he is from the Church of the Living God. And there's Miss Sharon Ford, of course, from Manual. Everybody knows her. So, thank you. So we really have you guys to thank for helping our students, and I appreciate everything that you do. So if you could all we'll give you certificates in the other room. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next up, it's my pleasure to bring forth Mr. Thomas Walsh to present our student showcase.
Well, good evening, Board President Adler, Dr. Crott, and board members. Tonight I have actually two presentations. Our first is Mr. Cody Baker. Mr. Cody Baker is a senior at Manual Academy. Step up, Cody, come on up. And he's with us tonight is Coach Boyer, Coach Roger Boyer, the wrestling coach at Manual Academy as well. This young man is a three-sport athlete: football, baseball, and wrestling. And specifically, he's here tonight in recognition of his fifth place finish in the wrestling tournament for the state of Illinois. Quite an accomplishment. The staff at Manual describes Cody as a great competitor, tremendous leadership skills as well. As I said, not only fifth place in state, academically, he is in our E for Life program, our partnership with Caterpillar. It's preparing him for future employment. He intends to go on, and he can speak a little bit about this as well, to Midwest Technical Institute in East Peoria. I'd like to have Coach say a few words about Cody and his fifth place finish in state this year.
Thank you for recognizing Cody, first of all. I'm just going to read off some stats here because I think that says it all for Cody. This was a 4-year process for him, and without him buying all in at a basketball school, this would have never happened. Sorry, Coach Booth. All right. Few stats. Give me about 30 seconds here. He's ranked number 5 by the state of Illinois, number 5 by Illinois Matman. His season record was 37-4. His career record is 121-24. He's 2-time All-Conference. He was voted Conference Wrestler of the Year. He's a Chuck Murdoch All-Area Wrestler. 1-time Honorable Mention All-Conference, 4-time Sectional Qualifier, which is unheard of. 2-time Regional Champion, 2018-2019. Second place at Regionals 2017, third place Regionals in 2016. First at the Illini Bluff Tournament this year, second in Tolano, first in Tolano last year and in 2017, and first in Kewanee Tournament in 2017, and third in Kewanee in 2016. Says a lot about Cody. He is the all-time leader in wins at Manual High School, and as far as we know, and we've checked every record, he is the only state qualifier for Manual history.
Go ahead. Thank you for having me tonight. I'm in the E4L program. We partnership with Caterpillar. I am a welder. I'm going to be welding at Caterpillar full-time, and they're also paying for me to go to MTI, Midwest Technical Institute. I am going to actually be at ICC studying fire science, get my degree there, and I'm going to be a pipe fitter, making roughly about $100 an hour. You got to get financially right first.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, right?
But, yeah, if it wasn't for Coach, I wouldn't be in this predicament right now. I feel like he's helped me a lot. He's always told me, if you prepare to fail, you fail to prepare, meaning if you always prepare, you won't fail. And if you do fail, you always can come back on that and look to change. You can change your outcome for the next time you try. I would like to thank Mr. Walsh, Ms. Karat, and everybody who welcomed me here tonight. Thank you.
Don't forget your principal also. And they need you, Ms. Z, for photos in the back. They need you for photos, Ms. Z.
And Ms. Z.
So, Cody, on behalf of Peoria Public Schools, Superintendent Karat, we want to award you this medallion tonight. Tremendous student athlete. I think Principal Zilkowski would like to say a few words for Cody as well.
Cody kind of exemplifies what our students really are and what the staff prepare them to become. And that's our future. Perseverance, hard work, and kind of dedication and a lot of growing up. Yeah. So that's what we're about down there. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our second presentation tonight at Richwoods High School, if Coach Will Smith and his Richwoods High School students would come to the podium, and I know we have someone who needs to go down front to meet Thomas Brook, so come on over, guys. So go up 3 and 3, is that how you want to do it? That's kind of a 3 and 3 signatures. So a little over a year ago, Board President Adler approached us about an opportunity that he had been part of through working at Caterpillar. And in the Chicago suburbs, Caterpillar had been working with many school districts through a program called the Illinois Science and Technology Institute, which presented students with a real life challenge. Not a challenge that they dreamed up of, but a true issue that they dealt with at Caterpillar, and then student teams from within schools competed against each other to advance to a showcase opportunity where they presented again, as well as other school districts from the Chicago area. And so I'd like to turn this over to Will Smith, who's one of our teachers and also the head basketball coach at Richwoods High School, to talk a little bit about this opportunity in STEM, this partnership with Caterpillar, from mentoring to competition, and what it's done for his business classes.
Thanks for having us tonight. This is a tremendous opportunity. These guys have been well prepared and well versed in their presentation they're going to give you tonight. This process came to me. Actually, I have to thank our principal, Mr. Elliott, and Ms. Imkin, who brought this opportunity to me last year, probably around April, to get this started. Started all with a phone call and Mr. Adler to get this thing rolling with the business classes. They chose marketing, which we thought was the best aspect because no matter what you do, you need to market it for sale. These kids have done a tremendous job in doing that. I'm not going to give too much of their presentation. They'll tell you about their project and how it came about. But this whole process was tremendous, partnering with Caterpillar, the many meetings and the many mentors. We had help. I think, if Mr. Adler can correct me, it was about 17 mentors maybe, or 13 or something like that, would come and volunteer their time in the classroom and lend their expertise for our students to further advance and understand the actual engineering field and what they had to do technically wise. All these kids here that I know of, when they came to my class, had no idea this was going on. When I first presented it to them, it was a lot of sighs and awe. I thought a lot of them were going to leave the class. They all stayed. And they had been a tremendous, before this effort started, none of them knew each other. They weren't friends, and they ended up collaborating very well to get the work done, and became a very, very well-rounded group. So I just want to give them a round of applause on the actions that they did this semester. So without further ado, I'm going to step to the side and let them present. Thank you.
When driving around the streets of Peoria, what do you see? You see potholes, construction signs, cones. How can we fix that? Also, I remember hearing a story about a worker wandering off a high beam because he was on his phone. How can we ensure worker safety? What brings us to our problem statement. How can we ensure job site efficiency, and how can we ensure job site safety? There's only one answer. Eagle Eye, presented and created by the Standard of STEM. Now here's Halea with the how.
So when it came to brainstorming or figuring out a way to process this challenge, we brainstormed ideas which included ID cards, drones, and ID scanner. Towards the end, we decided not to do any of those because of the safety aspects with the customers. So towards the end, we decided to actually do a physical prototype and an app. And now to Alyssa explaining our app.
Our product, Eagle Eye, places a GPS chip in the back of a worker's hard hat and in the cabin of machinery, which then connects to our product, Eagle Eye. It includes a warning system which increases safety, and we could also track the productivity of workers. And now to Elizabeth with our competitive analysis.
So Eagle Eye includes monitoring of personnel management as well as machinery like no other apps do to increase safety and efficiency on job sites. Where other apps only track machines, our app tracks people and machines to make it a simple and efficient way to track people. So now here's Caesar with the app demonstration.
Here at the Standard of STEM, we put an emphasis on the visuals and graphics of our app to make sure it looks as good as well as it runs. Right here we have the app iconography. When you click on the app, you'll be transported into the login screen. The login screen is username and password protected to make sure your information and data are secure. Once you get past the login screen, you would then be transported to the main screen. The main screen has three options. The join a site option, where you punch in a code to be able to access a site. You have the create a site option, where you plug in coordinates to be able to monitor the workers in that area. And then you have the save sites options to be able to access all the sites you have already created. Right here we have a prototype of our app. Right here you see the icons that represents the machines and the workers. As you see the workers get close to the machine, you'll eventually see that there is a warning notification. This warning notification is the safety aspect of our app. And make sure you know where everyone is at all times, and if they're close to a machine, then you know that there might be trouble going on. And it's very efficient because you know exactly where the workers and machines are in the construction site, so you know what's getting done and what's happening in real time. And now here's Elizabeth with customer concerns.
Okay, so why would we choose Eagle Eye? Eagle Eye revolutionizes safety and efficiency. It's a simple way to keep an eagle eye on your workers. And what if a worker is next to a machine on purpose? The supervisor can dismiss the alert and move on with their day. Now here's Trey with pricing.
How much would our product cost? We haven't developed it yet, but what we have developed is that you have to pay for the chip up front. There will be a 6-month trial, then payments. And if the chip breaks, you'll have 2 free chips as a warranty. But with that being said, are you keeping an eagle eye on your workers? Does anyone have any questions? Oh, that's real funny, huh?
I would just like to say I'm very impressed with the presentation, the idea, and how well you guys presented it. So, yeah.
Ditto.
Yeah. I think I see somebody familiar. Wasn't one of you with the Woodruff food truck as well? No? Well, maybe you could put an eagle eye on that.
So are you actually going to produce, market it, and get it up and running and available for purchase and for distribution?
That's at the discretion of Caterpillar. We It's like we presented the idea to them,
see.
so if they want to run it out, they can. So.
All right, Ms. Adler?
Great job, guys. Mr. Smith and the team were up representing Richwoods High School in Chicago. I guess it was only a week ago now, and did a great job. And I think if we could have taken a picture of how they looked the first day when we presented the challenge and how they ended up, I mean, you would have seen quite the transformation. It was great and I got to serve as a mentor as well. It was really fun for us to watch the students grow, and so I think they did a great job. One of the reasons why I was so captivated by this experience is because I don't see there's any reason why we couldn't apply it to any of the other career pathways that we promote within our district. There's no reason we can't, figuratively, of course, push the students off into the deep end of the pool and let them learn to swim in the real world, as opposed to trying to build them up to those fundamentals. I think it's a really good experience, and you can see they culminate as a team very well. So it was my honor to work with you guys and watch you grow. So great job.
Whoa, don't leave yet. Do we have parents here? Any parents? Well, come on. We're going to put Eagle Eye on you.
All right, really quick, I'm going to announce all the group members. All their parents are here as well. And then, as I announce you, you'll come across and Mr. Welsh will give you your medallion for the tremendous work you did. But one more time, I want to thank Mr. Adler and the school board for having us, but definitely Mr. Adler for bringing this presentation, this challenge to Richwoods High School. Thank you, Mr. Adler. So I'm going to start with Alea Powers. Thomas Liston. Alyssa Dollar. Corey Hightower.
Congratulations, Corey.
Cesar Suarez.
Congratulations, Cesar.
Elizabeth Kirschmore. Trey Thompson Gomes.
Coach, and kudos to you also, and Mr. Elliott and Ms. Inkem for being game and taking on the challenge. I know we had our State of the School presentation, and the theme was about reimagining school. So this is a beautiful project, a beautiful idea. And I remember even a quote from 1,500 executives, students, and they said, creativity is the ность leadership skills that they're looking for. So this is such a perfect example where you've taken a problem and creatively you have put your heads together to really come up with a viable solution that's pretty impressive. So that's the 21st century skills that's needed. You keep doing that, you guys are definitely going places and going very, very far. So keep up the good work. Coach, thank you. Also,
Thank you.
Mr. Elliott, thank you. Mr. Adler, of course. He's been talking to me about it, I said, go for it.
Thank you.
I'd just like to thank Mr. Smith one last time because he put in a lot of effort in this, and it was a really valuable experience for all of us. So just wanted to thank you.
Yeah.
I have always talked about the great things that are going on inside of all of our schools. And it just makes my heart feel really good to see our students step out and do things that are unimaginable and make them come real. So I would like to thank all the people involved in this project, because so many great things go on inside our schools that people don't know about. and we need to always show ourselves off. And so I'm hoping that whoever's listening tonight, and I hope the paper writes about it, instead of writing about things that happen that are bad. Great things are going on in our schools, and you all showed it.
All right, the next district presentation, as the budget amendment for FY19. Ms. Iman and Mr. McKenzie. I didn't even have to make my budget joke, everybody just left.
Yeah, I know. They're going to miss the best part. All right. Thank you, Dr. Karat and President Adler and School Board for giving us this opportunity to give you the budget amendment this year. To be short and sweet, this is our budget team that's in charge of all of this every year. Carla and I and Mick and the rest of the people upstairs work all year long to do these keep everything straight, and so we have to bug you a couple times a year, and this is one of those. So we do a budget amendment every year. This is the same slide I used last year. It's the usual practice here to do a budget amendment in June of every year. When we do the budget in the summer of the previous year, there's lots of things we do not know. We don't have final Title I budgets. We don't have
we didn't have the SIG.
We didn't have SIG grant at all this year when we did the original budget. So some of the stuff we make placeholders for, and but we don't have the final budget. Some of them we don't have at all. So we need, and there's state law about if the budget changes more than a certain percentage, you need to do an official budget amendment. So we just have the normal practice that since by now we know most of this stuff that's going to happen in the next 2 months, not everything obviously, but we do a budget amendment just as a course of business to do, present it in May and then approve it in June for all the changes we've made throughout the year. And the last line about changes in revenue expenditure, if you have a certain percentage that changes within the year, you're required to do a budget amendment. And so we're so big and they're so complicated that we just do one every year in June. So today or this week we're going to have to do a public notice that the budget's on display. Part of the problem with the budget amendment is anytime you adopt a budget in a school district in Illinois, you have to put it on display for 30 days, so you have to fit it into the school board meeting. So today, we're presenting it to you. Tomorrow, we'll put it on display, we'll put it on our website, we'll put it at the front desk here in this building. And then on June 10th, we'll do a public hearing, and then ask you to adopt the amended budget on June 10th. So that's just the timeline of things. The big changes this year, the biggest change on the revenue side was property taxes. We actually ended up having a decrease of EAV this year of 1.98%. Our original budget, when we were doing this in the summer, I was estimating a 1% increase because that's what we had last year. And then across all of our funds, a 1% change in EAV just basically changes the taxes we're going to receive by $410,000 approximately. So, 525,000 or 528 or something like that was within the education fund. So some of it was in transportation, some of it was in the other funds. But so the biggest change on the revenue side of this budget was the decrease in property taxes from our original estimate. And we talked about that when we did the tax levy, and it pretty much came up to what, pretty close to what the assessor was saying in December is what we ended up getting. So we don't get that final number until basically April 1st of every year. So And then the other big change is transportation fund. We don't know in the summer what the proration's going to be and everything. So there was about a $700,000 difference between what I had originally budgeted and what we got. Some of that was simply we spent last year, and part of this is kind of a reimbursement of the previous year's expenses. So since we spent less and they prorate all that stuff, it was less than I had originally budgeted. But we don't know that number until October. So. And at this point, we've only received one of the 4 payments for transportation from the state, but there's been no sign that we're not going to get them, but they're late like usual. So, and then the other big thing is I didn't have the bond sale. We're issuing $1.5 million of capital project fund capital projects fund bonds that we're paying for out of the county school facility sales tax. So that's now in the budget also. So. Those are the big changes, and like I said, the other big change is the grants. When we don't have all the information in the summer, plus we just get a lot of grants throughout the year that we need to add revenue and expenses, and even though they balance to zero, it increases those numbers, and so we need to add that to the official budget. So. Here is the preliminary budget for the operating side: education fund, operation and maintenance, transportation, and Social Security IMRF. This is most of our employees, most of the operational side of the budget. We had about just over $200 million of revenues and $206 million of expenses is the budgeted amounts. The education fund is close to, that's where most of our activities happen, is in the education fund. So that's by far the biggest one, and you'll see that. I always like to point out that even though it's $179 million, $43 million of that is that on behalf payment, and you'll see an on behalf payment as a revenue and an on behalf payment as an expense. And that's the amount that the state is supposed to be contributing to TRS. We don't get that money. We don't pay that money. It's just it's an amount that the state is supposed to be paying into the teacher's retirement system. And so it is a number that appears in our final budget and our final audit, but we never actually see that money. It's not like it comes to us and then we pay it back. It's all happens at the state level. But all that being said, we're still showing us a $582,000 negative in the education fund. I don't expect it to be that number, simply because of the fact that we budget across lots of departments and lots of schools. We have 27 schools, we got 30 buildings, we've got lots of departments, and so all those schools and departments have things like supply budgets. Well, none of them are over that budget, so there's going to be some gap in there just that they're not going to spend. So I don't expect it to be this level, but it'll be close. And so we went through and did quite a bit of research in the last couple of weeks trying to adjust everything as close as we can. So, but but things like overtime and subs and all that kind of stuff is still an estimate in there. We don't know exactly how that's going to fall out. So. Anyway, so that's the operating side.
Mr. McKenzie?
Yep.
With the label up here, preliminary, is that
it's preliminary until we approve it next month.
Okay.
Yeah. So
it's not what we approved in September?
No, it's not the same numbers. It's close. I mean, some of the numbers look really close. I mean, it was 450-some thousand, I think, was the negative in September. And in the education fund, it's gotten slightly worse than the original budget we presented, mainly because of those two revenue side things that we did. Most of the other changes are kind of neutral changes, but certainly we had those two big revenue changes. And then I've refined down payroll and things like that. So it's similar numbers, but it's not the same numbers, no. Definitely not.
I just want to ask, is there a reason why you don't have the budget that was presented to the state and this like side by side so we could see the difference in whatever
From the earlier
changes? The one that was what we approved earlier that was sent to the state. I know this one is the preliminary, but
yeah, this is the new. I could do a report like that, but I don't. I did not do that report. You're just talking a change report. Yeah.
What the changes would be in these categories?
Yeah, I can
anticipated and well, not in actuals yet. I realize that.
Yeah, I'll put that together tomorrow in Excel, and I'll email that out to you, showing you, each fund and the approved in September, and then the proposed now, and then the changes. Sure, I can do that tomorrow. I'll play around with looks, so it's easier, try to make it as easy to read as possible, but I'll work on that tomorrow. It should be no problem to send that out tomorrow. So, and then in your board packet, well, there's another slide with the non-operating side, and we have debt service, which even though it has a large fund balance at the bottom of $11 million, a lot of that's just timing, because we levy one year and pay the debt service payments the next year. So on June 30th, we have a balance every year. Capital projects has a big negative of almost $12 million budgeted there, but that was planned because we issued bonds in previous years, and now we're spending out the money. And we're issuing new bonds to continue the HVAC and all the other projects that we've been working on. So that has a negative balance, but that's all planned. Working cash, we did levy for that. We're probably going to propose transferring some of that money to O&M later before the year end. And then tort and life safety, that has very defined purposes of what you can do out of it. So those are all the primary funds of the district. So you did in your board packet receive the entire packet, which is the state's version of the packet with all the by function and by object. And so if you see numbers, there's always the question of the quest number. I could show you exactly where it's got its own cell now, so for charter schools on that official budget. But that's all in your board packet also. I've got a couple hard copies if anybody wants one. But usually I bring the hard copies and I get them back, so I'd only brought a few this time. So if anybody wants one, I do have a few hard copies. So, and that was really all I had. Since everybody left and didn't want to hear the.
Okay. Any questions for?
I didn't let Carla speak. I'm sorry.
All I said was the grant budgets. That was it. Sorry, the grant budgets changed. That was mine.
Any questions from board members?
Yeah, I have a question.
Mrs. Ross.
There's a form here that the board signs.
Yep.
Is this too early to sign it?
Yeah, it's too early. You need to wait until June 10th.
Okay, thank you. I thought maybe it was getting passed around today.
No, that will be.
That's bonds.
When we do the amendment, or the official board resolution in June.
Okay, good, thank you.
Mr. Walter.
Have we seen any decrease in federal funding? Any changes?
In federal funding?
Yes.
They're a little, I think, 1%, something like that, is what the Title I area went down, and Title II as well, for example. Title IV went up a little bit, so it's fairly, I'd still categorize it as fairly stable, but a little bit of a drop.
Okay, thank you.
I do have one more question for Carla. As it relates to grants, I understand we got quite a few grants. What line item would that be in?
Okay, that's going to be scattered.
Yeah. On the revenue side, you'll see federal sources. So that's the revenue. So that's Title I, that's food service, that's IDEA, that's all those kinds of things.
Yeah, there was some other stuff that.
And then the expense side would be split between salaries, benefits, purchase services. It'd be part of those numbers within the expenses size. Not really. It doesn't really. The revenue side gets split by source. The expense side.
I know we got a grant. Let me clarify. I know we got grants for additional early childhood education and several other grants that were listed. I'm just wondering, how do you find them in this document?
How would you see the expansion grant, for example?
Well, in this report, you would not see that specific of detail. I mean, that's, the district uses about 15,000 lines of detail so that we can pull reports for any of that kind of stuff. So we could easily, in a matter of 5 minutes, Carla could pull up a report and show you that exact individual grant.
But it's not included in these totals?
It's included in these totals, but it's in the pot, so the revenue is part of that federal sources, And then the salaries that are paying for that, the salaries that are being paid for by that grant are mixed into the salary line and benefits and stuff. It's all kind of mashed together at this level. So, but the reason we use the, 23 character, account line or whatever, account numbers, our account numbers are enormously long, and we always try to explain people how you read them, but part of it is we need to have a designator of a grant. So federal grants and state grants, we need to be able to run a report very simply of everything all the revenue we got from that grant and all the expenses for that grant. So every time we get a new grant, we create a new set of account numbers. But when we do this level, it all kinds of gets matched into salaries and benefits and purchase services and all that. So,
Mr. Adler.
Dr. Pop.
You said the Quest had its own cell now? Mm-hmm. Where would that be?
if you look on page, I've got to find it myself. This is at top of page 11.
Okay,
top of page 11, the second line, or the line that says 6 on it, tuition payment to charter schools.
Okay, hold on a second, because I don't have page numbers on mine.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. I forgot you're looking at it on your computer.
I'm looking at
The page number's on the top left.
Oh, back down here?
It's page 11, so the second line of numbers, it says tuition payment to charter schools.
Page 33 on packet page.
Okay, page 11,
It's
hold
also
on.
on page 11.
It says page 11 of the actual packet here on the top corner, but yeah, but on your bigger PDF, it's probably, yeah.
Yes, on my PDF.
Yeah.
That's the-
And I would tell you that it's that number, $6,097,770.
Okay,
plus,
what line page?
it's on page 11 there, second line, tuition payment to charter schools.
Got it.
Third column over is purchase services, that's
Got it.
$6,097,770.
Got it.
It's that number plus $400,000 of transportation in the transportation fund. The $400,000 kind of gets mixed in with the purchase services under transportation fund.
Okay.
So it's that number plus $400,000 is what we paid Quest this year.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good.
Just one other question as it relates to that. How many students does this represent?
Said I.
Request, how many students does
Does
that
this represent?
590.
I think it's even a little less now, though, like 580. I know they're even down even below that, or 574.
Yeah, I mean, we pay them based on the average number of students for the entire year, and you know, so I don't remember what the last quarter was. It was in the 590s at one point, but I think it got into the 580s, you know, by the end of the year. So.
And we go ahead and track it quarterly to make sure that we're not overpaying.
All right.
All right. Any other? Okay. And as always, if you ever have a question and you want a specific report about a specific grant, feel free to call or email me or Carla. Either one of us can run those reports fairly quickly. Don't call Mick if you want that kind of detail. So he would just call us. So
I have that.
exactly. That's why he asks us. So
Not just for good looks, right?
exactly. He does other things usually. So, all right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we have presentations by audience. We do have rules for presentations by audience by our comment box and also posted on our website. But we just appreciate your civility and just ask that if you make critiques, try to keep it constructive so we can try to work on it. Of course, the board members are available for comment or questions outside of these meetings as well. So 5 minutes and we're good. So first up, I have Molly Gray.
Good evening to the board and Dr. Karat and President Adler. I have noticed in the minutes that at the end you guys are going to asked to approve the purchase of kindergarten and first grade balanced literacy from Heinemann. And I just kind of wanted to make a few points about, I piloted the Journeys program this year in my school at Tree Win, and we don't have kindergarten, so it was first through third grade that piloted there, along with Northmore and Keller. And we piloted the Journeys program, and we felt that it was a very effective reading program. As far as I know, nobody has piloted the Heinemann literacy product that you guys are going to look at tonight, or I don't know if you're going to actually look at it or just vote on it. But some things that I wanted to bring out across the board on all of our grade levels. Everybody, second and third was approved for Journeys for this next year. Fourth and fifth have it. And I just kind of want to know why K1 wouldn't have the same consistency across the board with the same reading program. You're going to do that reading program for the next 7 years, and second and third. The others have had it for a couple more years than that, but then for us to have it for 7. But just the consistency between the students, between the staff, between the substitutes that we have on a pretty regular basis, and our long-term subs. The Journeys program is just very effective, I think, in our K1 especially, that we would really like to keep Journeys. I would love to keep it. We have had a meeting before where it was just the piloted schools, and we discussed what we liked about it, if there were some pros and cons, and there were a lot of pros to keeping Journeys, and that we would really like to keep it. But why we would only approve second and third and not K1. Okay, K1 is your basis for all your reading and your letters, your sounds. If you don't get a handle on it first, then those kids going on up into second and third grade, we want them reading by grade level at third grade. And so we have to get that basis. And if we keep the consistency of that reading program going, K through 5, we can see a big difference. I've noticed a big difference in my kids this year. I've taught pre-K for 17 years. Then I moved into kindergarten at Tree Win for 7 years, and this year I am teaching first grade since we lost our kindergarten. And we are getting kindergarten back in the fall, and I'm going to teach kindergarten then in the fall. And the Journeys program just really, I mean, just out of all the programs that I've gone through down there at Tree Win in these 8 years that I've been there, I just really feel Journeys is a very good program for us. They give you all the supplies. There is a lot of books, and we have a basal reader the kids absolutely love. They love the stories. They are very down to earth for them. CKLA, when we did that one, the books were just way over their head. It just doesn't equate to what they know and their knowledge and that. And, you know, we're looking at word knowledge and things like that also, and spelling. And in this first grade unit, we introduce over 500 words to these kids in first grade, to where in kindergarten, we want them to know at least 140 words before they go to first grade. Well, we're introducing 500 in first grade to go on to second. And it's just a powerful program. I just really like it. I wish more of the teachers from the K1 could have come tonight. I know the three of us, Ms. Cantos also teaches with me at Tree Win, and she really likes the program. Ms. Hannah Lewis is also our other one. She's moving into second next year, so she'll keep Journeys. But we just really, all the parts integrate with all academics. We have some science, we have some art, we have social studies, we have the reading, all the balanced literacy parts that we really need is in Journeys, all of those books. Next year, when I go back down into kindergarten, I'm going to be working with 2 new teachers. Well, not new, they've been in the district, but one is coming from 4th grade, which is a big difference down to kindergarten, and the other one has worked with the autism kids. For those teachers, this is such a great program to have all of those supplies right there. They have everything in the all of our manuals. You get to the point where you don't have to use that manual because you can really just use all of the parts, and it helps with all of our differentiated reading levels that we have. We have kids that are very high in that medium group, and we have a couple that are low, but we can really break those groups up. And I have a couple tutors that come in and actually help during our win time, and we really get that balanced literacy part done. We do a section of reading, and we do writing components with it, and they have really nice writing components also with it. So I really hope that at the end, when you guys vote for this new product, Hyman, for $322,000. I think that with Journeys is such a complete set that, I don't think it's as expensive. I'm not exactly sure. I'd have to ask Lisa for sure, but it's just such a great program and that. And I really wish that some of our other teachers could have made it tonight, because when we were in those meetings, they were very, they just had a lot of pros about it, and they really wanted to keep the program. So, thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Ms. Sharon Cruz.
Even though Dr. Karat's Friday evening email states that Summit Learning will not be implemented next year, clearly this administration still believes that a personalized learning system is the wave of the future and still favors Summit Learning. Undoubtedly, the administration wanted Summit Learning to be used throughout the district, but therefore Washington Gifted, the district's most successful program, was chosen as the guinea pig of the pilot program. However, Summit's success at Washington would not have guaranteed success at lower achieving schools. If it's true that Quest is using Summit right now, we have good reason to believe the program would not be an improvement for our schools. Up until Monday's meeting at Washington, the administration's expectation was for the board to vote yes to implement Summit next year at Washington. The administration had even hinted that Summit would help improve Washington's test scores to restore the standing as a top 10 school. The district's administration itself is the cause of lower test scores because standards have been lowered and class sizes have been increased significantly. Also, Summit, I believe, is designed for Title I students, so it would have been inappropriate for and harmful to Washington students. The decision to implement Summit at Washington next year had been made without seeking questions and/or opinions of teachers, parents, or even board members. Ignoring these groups when major decisions are made should stop. Last Monday's meeting at Washington was not the administration's idea. The parents requested and the principals organized it. Just as Lathan did not anticipate raising the ire of Charter Oak parents, this administration overlooked the fact that Washington parents know how to advocate for their children. I believe that those in the know would agree that Washington Gifted and the Richwoods IB program are the most successful and long-lived in the district, and both include components of personalized learning. My proof of their success is the stellar success of Malia Atkins Threets, who, along with many of her classmates, graduated from college having acquired lucrative four-year scholarships all over the United States. After graduating from Truman University, Malia received offers for graduate degrees at universities all over the country. Having accepted a 5-year scholarship with a lucrative yearly salary at the prestigious Washington University in St. Louis, Malia is now in her second year of earning her PhD in developmental, regenerative, and stem cell biology. Even though Summit brags about a partnership with Harvard, Summit turned down Harvard's proposal to study the program. Therefore, impacts on student outcomes have not been measured. Since Summit is backed by the Zuckerbergs and Bill Gates, computers and remote learning are bound to be overused. This district needs to do extensive research into the negative impact that remote learning and overuse of technology has on young people. General complaints about personalized learning in general and Summit learning specifically are rampant throughout the country and need to be considered by our administration. Also, personalized learning and Summit demand small class sizes. District 150 cannot afford small class sizes, and our teacher shortage makes small class sizes impossible. You have to be realistic. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Mr. Terry Knapp.
Yes, before I came this evening, I was going to talk about something different than what I'm going to talk about. But as I was killing a little time before I picked up Ms. Cruz to bring her over to this meeting, I watched on TV President Trump give Tiger Woods the Medal of Freedom. If you get a chance, watch the whole presentation. Tiger Woods is truly a phenomenon, and you need to be aware of what he did. In changing my presentation, I want to say that there's a person sitting at the dais who also deserves a medal, Peoria Public Schools Medal of Freedom, and that's Ernestine Jackson. And I want to talk about Ernestine for a moment. She's one of my favorite people. We've not always agreed on everything, but Ernestine Jackson is responsible for us turning the corner in this district. And I want you to know, you know how I feel about that. And I will personally get you a medal before you leave that will be worthy of, hopefully, your participation on the school board. I think, Dr. Crott, you can thank Ernestine because you would not be sitting in that seat if it had not been for Ernestine. Derek Booth, who is one of my champions, he wouldn't be in his seat if it hadn't been for Ernestine. And Ernestine was responsible, and I know she doesn't want to be necessarily singled out for this, but for turning the corner on the way this district was going. For 10 years, this district was a misery. The Board of Education was a misery. The Board of Education that sits in their seats today should be proud of themselves for turning the corner for the district and the kids of Peoria. Ernestine, you and Don, I've always admired you for having gone to Manual. My parents went to Manual, Dorothy Knapp and Carl Knapp. My mother graduated at 16 years old from Manual, very smart woman, and my dad was going to World War II. They got married when she was 16 and had my sister prior to the war. And when my dad came back from the Pacific and in the Fiji Islands, he saw fit to have another child, and that happened to be me, and I'm proud of that fact. But, you know, you went through a lot. I've always appreciated your advocacy for Manual. I used to sit and watch my mother prepare for her 50th class reunion and then her 55th class reunion. I'm preparing now for our 55th, which will be in September. We just did our 50th, and we have one every year. Yesterday, we had an alumni meeting down at Woodruff. We had over 100 people, and Mr. Walter and I did the tours. Mr. Walter graduated from Woodruff 2 years after I did, and it was truly, it brought tears to my eyes, really. I mean, to see the people come and support Woodruff in the north side is truly a thing to behold. We're giving away about $20,000 in scholarships like we do every year. One lady is a past graduate, graduated in '95 with my son. She's going back to school for her doctorate degree, and she applied for a scholarship and got one, as well as some kids that are applying right out of high school to go to ICC, or, you know, previous graduates. We're going to give about 15 kids from Woodruff $500 each to apply to their profession or going to school, and we're going to give another $250 grants to people who are going into business, much like the young man that was just here from Manual that won the wrestling award. I don't know if he mentioned to you, I was out of the building for a minute. I had to go down to a meeting at Woodruff, but he basically is going into welding. I think he probably told you that if he didn't. You know, what a thing. You know, I took 4 consecutive superintendents down to Pekin, and I've talked about that here at this horseshoe. As president of the union, they had 23 programs that we did not have in this district that we once had, and we discarded. Since then, we have, you know, the kids at Woodruff, when they come up here and get state awards, you know, for first place in culinary arts, or this group that was just up here from Richwoods, it just brings chills down my spine to what you're doing in-house, and that's due to Dr. Crott and her staff, and she should be proud of that. I know I'm proud of it. And, you know, this young man that's going to be welding at Caterpillar, you know, right out of high school, you know, it's a great thing. And we you know, I brought people over here with $100,000, $150,000 offers to restart auto mechanics. Mr. Whitten from Toyota and Mr. Uftring from Uftring Chevrolet came here and offered $150,000 worth of equipment and logistical support, and Dr. Royster's administration turned it down flat, didn't even call them back. And that's not what we need to do. You've been cooperating with the public, continue to do it. We don't need Zuckerberg, believe me.
Thank you. That concludes audience presentations. Any responses to audience presentations? Dr. Karat.
Thank you, President Adler. Let's see. I'll start with Mr. Knapp. Thank you for your ongoing support with the group, the alumni group at Woodruff. I mean, it's amazing the work that you and Mr. Walther and that group. I remember meeting with you guys about 3 years ago, maybe even longer, and the commitment that was given, and it just continues to grow and grow and grow. So thanks a lot regarding that. Ms. Cruz, if you're interested in learning more about Summit Learning, there will be a committee, so you're welcome to get on board and join that group. And then what I'd like to do is ask regarding thank you, Ms. Cantos and Ms. Gray for being here. It's great to see both of you. I know them well. As Ms. Gray said, she was my kindergarten teacher pre-K at Whittier for many, many years and was amazing. And Ms. Cantos was also an amazing kindergarten teacher for many, many years. So Ms. Gifford, are you here? Is Ms. Gifford around? Oh, okay, perfect. I was wondering if you can, you did a nice job just putting a comprehensive list together. Can you come to the podium? I think it's worth sort of at least explaining. I would love to have Ms. Cantos and Ms. Gray have a copy of the curriculum, the balanced literacy, the key elements, and then the various components from journeys to, and I know you talked to me about how popular a couple of folks, the teachers really love it, and where this new piece fits in and the overlap and so forth. Is that okay with you?
Sure. I don't have that document to give a copy to them. So, okay. So, as we're transitioning.
And actually, Ms. Gifford, I forgot to introduce, she's a literacy coordinator, so that's why I kind of picked on her.
Yay.
So this is all this is her work. So thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome. So in the document, I noted at the top that we're realigning all of our curricular frameworks this year. So throughout the 2018-2019 school year to incorporate a balanced literacy framework, which the long and short of it is that we are putting our objectives back on teaching reading and writing simultaneously in our ELA workshop time, and both of those points teeter very delicately on word study, phonics, and vocabulary. So the pieces that we look at to align have to have some sort of correlation to all of that. The 9 components to balanced literacy, 4 are rested in reading, 4 are rested in writing, and the 9th component being that word study piece. So you teach in tandem read alouds, modeled writing, shared writing, and back and forth. So on the piece that you got, that's the grade in area, so that you know that everything that we look for has to align to that. When we're taking a look at all of the purchases going on, we do have several curricular choices that are out there, and we have acknowledged that there has been a lot of transition in what it is that we've provided for our students, which has caused some stumbling blocks for our students' learning. In order to move forward, we have to align where we are going, because the juncture that we're at right now is a point of impasse with what we have used. So collections is where we start if we look backwards planning, because that was adopted in this district in 2014, and that was a 612 platform that was adopted upon. Because that was adopted, we started trying to think backwards. While it might not be the most logical way to look at our programming, it was the most sound progression that we had from a system that was already in place and rooted in a balanced literacy structure. So that dovetailed us into the 4-5 adoption last year of Journeys, and then the 2-3 adoption this year in Journeys as well. Journeys is the sister program to Collections, so it speaks the same language and consistency and continuity. The choice for Heinemann is looked at because of the level of rigor that those products provide for the phonics piece. Not to discredit what Molly said, because she is correct in the succinct nature of Journeys, and that a logical progression between those program pieces would make sense. But where we're coming from a curricular standpoint is that if we would like our students to be able to read on grade level by the end of grade 3, we would like to challenge them to all be on grade level by the end of first grade. And the desire is that the Heinemann pieces would be able to provide that and then shore into the Journeys pieces.
Mrs. Ross.
Oh, clarification.
Sure.
Well, not really clarification. I need an explanation as to why we wouldn't be able to use the Journey for K through 1, which seems like a natural progression into second and above. And it sounds like it's working for those grade levels we have it now. And, you know, we have years yet left on contracts with them, but I'm not understanding. I heard you say rigor.
Correct.
Was one of the things, but any of these programs could have rigor. Isn't that correct?
True. All of the programs have rigor, and the use of it with fidelity is what helps to ensure student success.
Exactly. So my point is, which I made last time, and this is not directed toward you, but the point is that teachers have no time to really learn what they need to learn to be able to present these programs to the children if we keep changing. And it would seem to me that if the K through 1 had the same program, they'd be ready when they got to second grade to just progress on rather than learn something totally new.
The point, you're correct. But the point in the use of the Heinemann pieces is to intensify the progression of word knowledge and phonics. Because Heinemann's pieces are published and created by Irene Fontes, who also published and worked on Journeys pieces, yes. But Fontes and Pinnell leads the way with the Heinemann publishing. And they are the gurus, so to speak, in the world of literacy development. And so their pieces are the most vetted and sound research on lexile development. Journeys uses the same structure because in the world of all these programs, they're all interconnected and they're all owned by the same publishing and clearinghouse. The piece with Heinemann is that since they are longer established, there is more research to prove the efficacy of the program. Unfortunately, Journeys, when you look at ed reports or if you look at What Works Clearinghouse, does not have sound research backing to it. And so if we're trying to be mindful about what is working on research's side, that was one of the key points that we were looking at.
So in talking to the staff across the district, what are they saying? I mean, what does the data say about what we have already and how it's working?
What we have currently in use or what we're using with the pilot buildings?
Well, you
So
call it pilot, but some of them have, like Journey, I think you have K through 6 and you have several levels of,
Okay.
when you say pilot.
Okay, so several things are happening in our district
Yeah,
right
a lot
now.
of them.
We're kind of here, there, and nowhere in a lot of ways. And I don't say that lightly. I just say that because that's the reality of what we're doing, which is why we're here talking.
That's what we inherited, and we're trying to fix that.
Correct,
To provide
correct.
some
So-
continuity across the board.
So we have currently buildings that are not in the pilot. So Journeys is being used at grade levels K through 3 within Keller, Northmore, and Trewin. And that was done because last year Keller was the only building that piloted the resources that were used to determine the decision for 4th and 5th grade. Why? Because I was there. And so that is how it started. When I assumed this role, I said it is not equitable or fair for us to determine all of our resources based off of our north end schools, right, when we look at the trajectory. Because if it works there, it might not necessarily work in another one of our venues. And having been a teacher in those other venues, I was really passionate that we had something that helped all of our children. So that is why this year's pilot was taken on the platform of Trewin and Northmore, two oppositional schools, right, with fragmented data across their grade levels as well. Looking at it, Trewin grew past what we had anticipated that they would do on their NWEA standards from fall to winter. Keller and Northmore had pockets of success where some grew and some did not, and we can all assume a myriad of options as to why. Do we have the longevity behind our data to say that it's successful for everybody? No, because we're just starting. When we look at 4th and 5th grade, it's the same. We have pockets of some great success in buildings where we hadn't necessarily seen success before, and we have some buildings who have maintained, okay, and some that have not. And that, again, is due to our lack of consistency as to what we're providing to our teachers and to our students. I can't account for the past because I was delivering the lessons. I wasn't part of what was being given to teachers to deliver. I know that didn't really answer your full question, but I don't have enough data to tell you. I know that teachers that are using Journeys, they love it. And that's what I hear in my LIP meetings, and that's the desire that they keep saying. They can't love something that they don't know, and that's where Heinemann presents itself. We don't know it. It's an unknown entity to a lot of our teachers. While we all know, any of us who have an elementary background, we all know Fontes and Pinnell leveling, and we all know what's best for teaching reading instruction. And right now, we're all very guarded as to what it is that we should be using because we don't want to see our students continue to fall.
Right. And so logically, no matter what kind of change is made, you're going to have a lag time for not only teachers but students to catch up. Or,
yes.
You know, I have this saying, we take 2 steps backwards, 2 steps forward and 3 steps backwards on a yearly basis. I don't want to, it's not blaming anybody for it. It's just, you know, why do we keep doing that? That's the point.
Because we all have our own opinions and we think what's best,
Right.
and everybody that comes in wants to make that happen.
Yeah.
I do think that the decisions that are being looked at are critical in the fact that all of us believe that reading is a civil liberty, and it is something that we owe to our students.
Ms. Jackson?
Since this is on the agenda, is there a reason why we can't go through that? And because I wanted to pull this anyway later on, instead of talking about it, do an audience participation.
We could talk about it more as the action item comes up. Ms. Gifford, you're not running away from us tonight, all right?
No.
Okay. Any other quick questions? Otherwise, we'll come back to this item. Its normal spot in the agenda. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
All right. Next up on our agenda is informational items, proposed expenditures over $2,500. Any questions for Mr. Willis on that list? All right, seeing none. Next up, report of requests under the Freedom of Information Act and status of such requests. Dr. Kropp.
Yeah, President Adler, interestingly, I have nothing to report.
How about that? All
Next
right.
time. Next meeting.
That's great. All right, next up, the consent agenda. Vice President Shaw.
All right, President Adler, the consent agenda consists of the following items. Item number 1, gifts to the school district. None this meeting, year-to-date, $65,360.09. Item number 2, payment of bills. Item number 3, payment for travel. Item number 4, human resources report. Item number 5, field trip approval, Manual girls basketball team to St. Louis, Missouri. Item number 6, field trip approval for WCTC culinary students to Louisville, Kentucky. And item number 7, the Heinemann Literacy Product Adoption for grades K1. And that is the entirety of the consent agenda.
All right, thank you, Mr. Shaw. Mrs. Jackson, I heard you ask for number 7 to be pulled.
Great.
Any other items to be pulled from the consent agenda for a separate discussion and vote? All right, seeing none, can I have a motion and a second to adopt the consent agenda with the exception of item 7?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on those other 6 items?
You mean 3 items? Oh, 6 items.
6, yes.
Payment of bills.
Or
I
is-
forget about those.
Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Don't forget.
Dr. Davison Aviles?
Garnish-Yache.
Mr. Wilson?
Aye.
Mrs. Ross?
Aye.
Mrs. Jackson?
Aye.
Mr. Walter?
Aye.
Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Adler?
Aye.
7 ayes, motion carried.
Thank you. Can I have a motion and a second to adopt item 7, the Heinemann Literacy Product Adoption for grades K1?
So moved.
Second. Who's the second?
Second.
Okay.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Mrs. Jackson, was your poll?
Yeah, I'm trying to listen with third ear, and a lot of times I'm not the brightest bulb around, but I just have some questions here. If Journeys is used at Keller, Northmore, and Tree Wind, where is this going to be used? Because it says that it's K1, and isn't Journeys 1-3?
2-3.
2-3.
250. And it's piloted.
Okay, so Journeys is a K-6 program. We have, at the start of next year, all of our school buildings will use Journeys grades 2 through 5.
All of the schools?
All of our schools. Currently, all of our schools use Journeys for grades 4 and 5. So I believe it was in February, there was a board request to adopt Journeys for grades 2 and 3, and so that was that backwards design. Next year, the request is that the Heinemann products be used for all of our buildings K1, and Journeys is stopped in its use for grades K1.
So Journeys will stop for K1, but start at grade 2 to 5?
Correct.
So Journeys is being used for K1 now? I'm
Correct. Journeys is being used in the kindergarten and first grade classrooms that are established at Tree Wind, Keller, and Northmore.
And for 1920 school year, Journeys will be used 2 to 5.
Correct.
Am I correct?
Correct. You are correct.
And the Heinemann is K1. Will that be used for all schools or some schools? Or how is that going to be used?
That will be used in all schools. So the and I didn't do it, maybe I should have, the breakdown of the materials and what Molly was referring to, I believe, is that the Journeys materials are divided per classroom, and the Heinemann materials, some are per classroom and then some are shared because that's the nature of the material.
Okay. Once we put K1 Heinemann into all schools, how is that going to interface with Journeys starting at 2-5?
Well, they're all rooted in the same Fontes and Pinnell leveling system, so they're all all of the reading material is based out of Lexile growth and proficiency.
So there won't be an issue or problem for students coming out of K1 Heinemann
well, there's
to Journeys 2-5.
There's a difference in products, so there could be a learning curve because you're introducing a different item. However, the thought is that if the phonics progression and vocabulary skills are built to a sufficient level, so above grade level mastery in K and 1, then the interface of a new material would not be of concern.
Okay. What effect would one program have on kids coming out of 1, going into 2 in another program?
I don't have any data that I could talk to you specifically about that aside from just what we see in our current test scores, because that's what we're living, that stair-step fragmentation to student learning. However, if this remains consistent, then we'd only see that in the first few years of implementation until everyone has adjusted. One of our concerns with where our data is right now is that we've seen this dip or rise in our data, and so we have changed courses with the materials that we've provided. And so all we do is continue to see this up and down motion where we're trying to build that consistency so that we might see it because that's the nature of a program change. However, our hope and intent is that a solid foundation in K1 would alleviate any of that progressively.
Is there a reason why we've got 2 separate programs, reading programs, one for K1 and one for 2-5, and they're different? It's usually, even if it might be a little bit competitive, but it's really not most of the time. With kids learning one program and then going into another program that is different, and whether it might work but still different, and what effect, and I guess I want to know what effect have you heard or thought about that using 2 separate programs are going to have on students?
It's an effect that racks me often because it's what we currently have, which is the reason why we have implemented the framework structure to balance literacy. Because those modalities and components of learning make the differentiation needed in order to continue to meet our students where they're at and lift them to where they need to be irrelevant based on materials.
I guess my concern is I wouldn't want us to pay $322,000 for a program and then have another program we're paying for, and there'll be a problem going from one program to the other, and our students are having some issues and concerns about it. I'd like more data on the 2 different programs and how they will work together effectively to make sure our students are getting all that they need, and make sure our teachers are in a position to teach those programs.
So a cross comparison between both programs and a data analysis of program evaluation? Okay.
I don't know, since we have not done this program that's on the agenda for tonight, right?
Correct.
But we've done journeys.
Correct.
And I guess I'm concerned about having 2 separate programs and have an effect on our kids on how they function going from one program to the other.
Ms. Gifford, I'm assuming you grappled with this transition question as well, right?
Yes.
We're not speaking necessarily volumes of new thoughts. How did you convince yourself that this was the best call?
You're just going to go right for the jugular on this, right?
It's the only place to aim.
I think I'm still grappling with it in a lot of ways, if I'm going to be honest and sincere with you. And I had to check my own bias a lot in this entire process. I don't know what Heinemann's products would be able to do or not with our students. Likewise, I don't know what Journey's products are going to be able to do or not do with our students. But I know that our teaching efficacy and standards is what needs to be addressed, and that is where the framework is coming from and the choice for select materials. We can't rely on any particular product to teach our children. We have to rely on the person in the classroom, and that comes down to our professional development and our understanding of where our level is with all of our practitioners. And it is scattered when we look at balanced literacy. When we look at both deciding pieces, our Heinemann products require us to have a level of understanding that I don't know all of our teachers necessarily have currently. It doesn't mean that they're not going to get there, and it doesn't mean that we're not going to provide them with that. But they're not at that juncture in their professionalism right now because they have not been asked to be there. And so we have to acknowledge that. Likewise, Journeys is doing the same thing. What Journeys is providing is a safety net in its planning system so that when teachers fall, they have something to lift them. What Heinemann says is that when you fall, you research, reevaluate, change your mindset, and keep going. Both modalities are appropriate for where we're looking to shift Peoria Public Schools. What we have to do is look at where are our teachers at and how are we going to get them through both of those. Because at the end of all of it, we could be in the same discussion in 24 months saying that either product isn't effective. And it's not the tool and it's not the child, right? It's our practitioner and what we're providing to them to be able to carry it out.
And so when we think about reimagining schools and challenging ourselves and getting unstuck with 20% of our third graders falling into meets and exceeds, right? And also challenging ourselves, our kids, and our staff, I would ask the board to really think about going with the recommendation from the team, and so that we can, again, ensure that we talked about last week, 100% of our kids, when it comes to the literacy by third grade, have a fighting chance. And so there is still a lot of work to do. We don't want to fall back under that safety net framework. And so it's a new direction for Peoria Public Schools. We've not had this comprehensive piece. And so it's taken a while because of all the long-term contracts. You heard one of them, the collections adopted in 2014. None of us were here, right?
I was.
But
not sitting at this podium. I've avoided it for a long time.
In terms of making decisions and then back, trying to fit everything in. So I'm really optimistic and I feel good about the direction we're heading. And I know there is really great professional development that will be available. But Mrs. Gifford is right in terms of it's more than just the curriculum.
Mr. Wilson, you had his hand up.
What's the, do we know offhand the cost that we are paying for Journeys?
So I believe it was a one-time cost of around $230,000 for grades 2 and 3, I believe. Mm-hmm. There might be some change in there, and I'm not the math person, nor am I good with numbers, so someone might want to check me on that.
And this is a one-time cost of $322, around there?
Correct.
One-time cost?
For 6 years, 6 or 7 years.
Okay.
So the program pieces are different, though, and so that's where the cost variance comes in.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So is it continued? Is it continually updated Journeys then still, since it's one-time cost, or once you purchase or make that cost, then everything you need is then?
So with the one-time cost with the Journeys and collections pieces, I have the ability to, as consumables roll out, I can adjust the quantity that we have and what type we have in print for our teachers, because all of it is available digitally.
Okay. For both pieces?
No.
For Heinemann and Journeys, you can do that with the one-time cost?
No, Heinemann is not a digital piece where you have student components that are digital. So Journeys has a digital interface where everything that's in print is also available digitally. Heinemann's pieces are in print, and the digital component are PD webinars for the teacher to be able to see someone deliver a guided reading lesson or a shared reading lesson. Those are not continually updated. It's a one-time package that's there for them to view at their discretion to help their skill set.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Ross.
I'll just make a couple more comments. Dan had his, go ahead, Dan.
Go ahead, you're on a roll. No, seriously.
No, I'll just say that, I really can't support it because I don't have the proper information. I know there are people who think maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, but I have quite a bit of educational background as well. But I know that if we can have continuity for our students, and as you said, I would like to know what the teachers, I've only heard from one teacher, what do the teachers say, the ones that are going to be presenting the program? And I'm sure that they're not trying to be safe, they're just trying to have the best thing for the children that they deal with. I mean, statistics are fine, but we have a diverse group of students that, and not everybody, will fit where we want them to fit. But what are the teachers saying, and what is the data telling us since 2014, since it was a pilot? Part of it was a pilot, but when I look at this, we've got 6 years left on one and 7 years left. I mean, if we say in 2 years we're going to roll out Heinemann to everybody, that means we've lost. We'll have to pay these people for the number of years that we're not using that anymore. So that's just mine. It's just not, to me, it's just not feasible. I think we can do the balanced literacy across the board by having continuity, consistency, and having our teachers. We have so many problems with getting teachers. We have, the substitutes and new teachers coming in, and everybody's got to learn something different. It's just, my experience, it's just not going to really be a good thing.
Mr. Walter.
Yeah. Lisa, I've heard, quite frankly, really good things about feedback from teachers about you, that you've been very open about this. I guess 2 questions I have.
Thank you.
Have we had a lot of input from teachers? I really appreciate the comments from the teachers that are here about the Heinemann thing. And is it possible to do the same kind of thing? To be honest, with Mrs. Ross on this, I'm a little iffy about this one, only because I want us to do the continuity too, and I agree with Dr. Crott. I think what we adopt for this reading program may be the signature vote that we do, and we don't even know it. I mean, adopting a correct reading program is going to set the foundations when most of the people around this table might not even be here. So it's not, I'm not trying to pick on you or pick on this thing, but this is a really important decision for us to do. And I'm not flippantly saying don't do this one.
Right.
And I understand where you were torn with going back and forth with this, but I guess my 2 questions are, have you had a chance to get teacher input, which is what I think Mr. Ross is asking us, that we've done that on the Heinemann. And I know it sounds like you've said the efficacy of this program, they've got a longer history where it's worked. We don't know if it'll work here, but we know in other places, you've shown there's some other places where they've got a track record on it.
Yeah, their publishing label is longer, so they would by nature have more research that can be compiled. I'm sorry, can you repeat your question?
Teacher input on Heinemann?
Okay, teacher input on Heinemann? No, we haven't had teacher input on Heinemann. We have explained to them what the pieces are. We have asked them for their suggestions as to what they need. But they're uncertain as to what all of it is when you look at it holistically and how those pieces would work together. I don't discredit your comments at all, and I think that their voice is a powerful one. Do they know Journeys more? Sure, because they've had it, but but is that the reason why we're in this situation? So I guess, I'm trying to choose my words really wisely here.
Oh, don't change yourself now.
I'm not changing, there's not changing anything, but there's that one voice that just shouldn't come out.
What kind of training development then will be given to teachers for this program, the Heinemann? Isn't there a training?
So Heinemann's training is a little bit different than what we're used to with Houghton Mifflin products. So HMH, Houghton Mifflin is Journeys and Collections. They come and they give, professional development for continual, and it's part of the package that you've paid for with that board approval. With Heinemann, our rep is willing to come and do that for our teachers because she is fully supportive of the transitions that we are working to make. However, after that initial 3-hour training with her, it would move to a per-purchased piece dependent on what teachers' needs are. And that is by Heinemann protocol. I can't change it, I've tried.
So it would be more than $322,000 because you have to buy the license.
It could potentially be more because you have to continue to provide the PD, which is where all of our program structures have fallen short. We do not consistently provide turnaround PD. The same is true of collections, which is in circulation right now and use in our buildings. There's not been turnaround training on that either. So, we can mince both sides against each other.
What about the online that you talked about in the webinars, so on demand?
Sure. So Heinemann packages, and this is available for any of our teachers, regardless of what program they're using, because it's based off of the balanced literacy components, which is the framework. You can log in when you purchase a Heinemann piece, and you have a digital repertoire similar to your Netflix interface, and you can select vetted videos on each of these 9 components to show how structures would be in place in your classroom. Typically, those videos show a lesson layout, how to deliver a lesson, and then the management involved.
I have 2 questions. One, the K-1, what we have today, is it a smattering of different programs? So we don't do anything to curriculum for K-1 right now. What's sitting there behind the shadows?
Currently, if they're not in a pilot, they're using CKLA materials, the previously purchased program.
Okay. Second question, time sensitivity of this curriculum adoption decision.
That's what I was going to ask.
Are we going to put you in a complete bind if we ask to delay until next meeting?
That's what I was going to ask.
You won't put me in a complete bind, but you'll just make my life a little bit more stressful. I can manage, so can our teachers, but they would like to know what the decision is so that they can begin to plan effectively through the summer, which I think is only fair to those educators, that they know what's coming at them rather than it being handed to them on day 1.
So would that give us time to ask the teachers? Yes. Is that what you're saying?
So obviously, it wouldn't give us enough time to actually pilot it, but we could gather more feedback is what I'm hearing.
Pilot the Heinemann pieces?
Yeah.
No, it would not give you enough time because the children are leaving soon and we need them for the pilot.
Yeah, part of what I'm glossing from the summary, which is excellent, by the way, is it appears our standard practice, or at least one that has commonly come through, is that we've got some of that longer lead time to establish a pilot and build up that, inherent teacher confidence and data and compare whatever.
Give us more time for teacher feedback.
Yeah.
Are you suggesting that I look into the possibility of a pilot for another time, or you're just wanting me to gather teacher feedback on current pieces?
Just comparing to what the summary that you've had. I would say if the board chooses to ask to delay this decision for 2 weeks, that we would be asking for you to dig back in and collect some more teacher feedback. The best you can do, understanding you won't have that pilot as a backdrop.
And I have just one thing for you to consider. The 2 things that we are looking at are different. And so the K-1 is based on the literacy framework. It's the components that are on your sheet. It's the balanced literacy framework. The Journeys is a packaged program. And when we do PD for the packaged program, we teach about how to use the teacher's manual. When we do professional development for something like the Heinemann, we talk about how to do guided reading, how to teach guided reading, how to teach shared reading, how to do the interactive writing. So we teach the components of the literacy. So the reason it's very hard to pilot a Heinemann is it's not a package that we can buy. The Heinemann, or the Journeys, is a textbook that we give our first graders. Heinemann is authentic books. It's authentic writing. It's shared reading. It's about the art of teaching. And that's why we moved from a Journeys to a Heinemann product for our K-1, because the focus is different. Lisa talked a little bit about the phonemic awareness, the sounds. That is the difference with the Heinemann. So we did not have teachers pilot it, because you can't pilot those kinds of things. But what we did spend a lot of time on this year and last summer was teaching teachers how to do guided reading, how to do shared reading, how to do write-alouds. We taught them the act and art of teaching. And so the coaches, yes, we did not have teachers pilot it, but the coaches themselves sat through many of the presentations, the ones that are working day-to-day with the teachers, and we asked them, what would help elevate and move the teaching practice of our teachers? And so Heinemann is put together products that focus on guided reading. Right, so we hand-selected the Heinemann products to focus on the balanced literacy to support the instruction of our teachers. And so will there be training? Absolutely. We did it all summer. We're doing it this year. We have tons of it this summer, and we will continue to, because we are doing professional development on teaching and the resources to support the teaching. That's why there should not be a big dip with programs or changes, because if we're focused on these literacy components with the hand-selected Heinemann components, our students should transition into any reading program, Journeys or anything else, because at K-1 we chose not to do a program. We chose to focus on the literacy components, and we chose to focus on teacher instruction and teaching the reading components. So we did make a change. It's not what we normally do, I agree, but I support Lisa's work with the coaches and with the teachers, and like Lisa said, we have lots of support to continue. And so I didn't hear the balanced framework, so thank you for listening to me. We're looking at two different things.
Could you clarify something for me? Sorry to
Sure, of
interrupt.
course.
Are you saying that the Journey doesn't have any of these components that the Heinemann has as far as the teaching components? Is that what you're saying? Journey doesn't have the teaching components?
Journeys is like a basal series. It's like a textbook. They're a textbook company.
I have to respectfully interject.
Yes.
Journeys does have those components. What Dr. Wilson is talking about is that when you look at Journeys, you have a teacher's guide, which is what we are all used to working from, and then you have a language and literacy guide, which replicates the same thing as the Fontes and Pinnell continuum, just not at the same depth.
Okay.
Fontes and Pinnell uses a continuum of learning and understanding to teach the lessons, right, to engage teachers and students alike. It does not lay out a day-to-day objective or outline. Journeys gives both, which was what I referenced when I said there's that safety net for our teachers who don't necessarily know how to just begin teaching from a strategy and a component. Fontes and Pinnell takes all of those components and says, hey, like here are all of these things in authentic text that you could be doing to ebb and flow these 9 components. Journeys has the same components, it's just scaffolded for our teachers to have that resource. There are the pieces, and both are authentic. Heineman's is just at a different level of rigor.
Okay. Well, thank you for that, but I would love to have the teacher input on this. And have you purchased it already?
No, we need
No,
your
that's what
approval,
the vote
we
is.
need your
That's what I
approval
thought.
first.
Okay.
That's what we're talking.
So I can gather teacher feedback if you'd like me to have focus groups, and I can vet research to try to show you what's out there in some sort of compendium platform for next time. I'm not really certain what it is that you're wanting me to be able to provide for you. So if you could give me specific directives, I will go forward and do that between both programs, products, I should say, pieces, elements. We can mince words later.
Mr. Adler?
Dr. Bob.
Yeah. As far as getting teacher feedback, I have. I've had teachers reach out to me, and they love this. And this was unsolicited. I had a teacher reach out. I hear you're going to vote on this. We want you to vote on it. I've also had unsolicited teacher feedback, kindergarten, several, who support you. Whatever magic you've done, it worked, at least for some of them.
I have magic.
I would like to emphasize Ms. Gifford's comments on the research on this. It doesn't take much. All you have to do is go to Google Scholar, type in Heinemann Balanced Literacy, and you'll get things starting from the early 90s all the way through the 2000s. And it focuses on a couple of things. One, that the balanced literacy, and see, Heinemann is a name attached to balance. It isn't balanced. Balanced literacy is a thing.
Correct. Heinemann is the product that
And Heinemann
promotes
is the
it.
product that promotes it. The
Sorry,
support behind balanced literacy as a pedagogical concept, as I said, is pretty substantial. And as I said, all you have to do is go to Google Scholar and look, and you'll find it. You'll find it over and over and over again. Now, we have a different program for K-1 in terms of literacy, and then we switch into something for 2 and the rest.
Yes,
Correct.
We're already experiencing one program to another. What I'm hearing is that the handshaking that's currently, it's already happening. So this isn't something we're doing to our students.
Correct. Correct.
What I'm hearing is that the handshaking that's going on has been not as efficient as it could be, if I'm understanding what you're saying.
Correct.
Please jump in and let me know if I'm missing things. So the idea that we have anecdotally teacher input, and they seem to like it. 2, we've managed to deal with the different program issue in the past, and that's not working. 3, the literature on Heinemann in terms of a balanced literacy program that is developmentally appropriate and works well with children who enter the schools with limited literacy and reading backgrounds, which I think could describe a lot of our population.
That's what the framework works to produce.
Exactly.
Right, readers that are ready to read by the end of their foundational skill set.
But done in such a way that the target population started out to be with students who were coming from background and entering their schools K-1 with a limited literacy background that they're bringing with them.
Correct, that's where the leveling system came in, and that whole idea for differentiation and scaffolding, it's not a new idea. We've been doing it for decades.
Exactly.
It's just Heinemann. You have 2 publishers right now that are warring over the title for who holds the best.
The other part of it is that that this developmentally appropriate practice as it includes balanced literacy is teacher competence heavy. From what it doesn't, like I said, it's not. In the time we've been having this discussion, I've pulled up half a dozen studies and been able to go through them fairly quickly and see. And yeah, it's teacher heavy. But I think we heard earlier, any curriculum is. And so, in point of fact, I trust our teachers. I think that they are competent and capable and really good at what they do. And I think if you put a good tool in their hands, they will create art with it. And so I'm supporting this.
Just one more comment. I'd still like to ask the teachers, because we have at least 2 teachers that are here. Are you guys teachers? That have said they like the program that they have now. So not every teacher, I don't know, I haven't done any research on teachers, but I don't see anything wrong with asking the teachers about the program, and we are using it in certain schools. So I was just talking about expanding it to the other schools rather than buy something different.
I think those are my thoughts exactly as well. I'm not against implementing this program. I just would like to hear from the teachers, get some teacher feedback, and some of the other things that were shared by board members as well, maybe some data on how the current program's doing, and kind of go from there. So I'm not against it at all.
Sure.
I truly believe you put in a lot of research, and I've heard good things about you as well.
Who are these
So I think
people that are
everybody
talking about me?
Here has heard that. Yeah, I don't think that's asking for too much to do that.
I don't think any of us don't want a good program. My whole thing is, how does it interface? What is it that the teachers are saying about it? But how does one program interface with the other? And you're telling me they're really 2 different, totally different ways of doing it. Is that correct?
Well, I spoke about the balanced literacy framework, and then I talked about the components that are within the balanced literacy framework.
Yeah.
And talking to the teachers, I think, is a great idea. We've had 3 buildings piloted, but yet the majority of our buildings have not piloted either. So that's the trick of that. And we can certainly gather more, maybe information from even the coaches and things like that.
If it's possible and it doesn't create a problem or an issue, I'd like for us to look at putting it on next meeting agenda.
Mr. Walter.
Just to the nuts and bolts, I mean, we put this poor lady on the spot, and she's asking us for some direction.
I got some. I was taking notes. You're good.
Yeah.
But I think maybe the focus group and maybe some of the research that Dr. Bob has said, this is your passion, this is Dr. Wilson's passion and Dr. Karat's passion, with the exception of my amigo over there. Most of us are lay people in this, and so give us a little time, give us a little bit more information. I think I share what Board Member Wilson said. I don't think you've got opposition to this. I think it's just more understanding is what we're searching for. And from a board standpoint, I'm glad we're doing that, because I think too many boards in the past didn't do that. And so what we're asking for from you is a little bit more understanding.
Sure.
And we've thrown out too many programs. Get them, pay for them, and they're gone.
Well, 300,000 here, 300,000 there, the next thing you know, you got $1 million.
It's a really expensive bonfire.
If I could just add one.
Let's talk about the boots on the ground.
And Ms. Gifford, that I don't know if you guys have this chart at all, but the components that comes with Journey, some of those components are missing in the Hyman. And then the Hyman also, nobody has taught it. Ms. Gifford hasn't, Dr. Wilson has not taught it yet. I really welcome you to come into our schools, come down to Tree Wind, and see and hear from the teachers how they like it. And you can look up research on either one of these programs on the computer, but until you are a teacher and you are in that classroom teaching those children, I love the art, the art of reading and teaching us how to do that, but if you don't have the supplies and the materials, I mean, I can't spend any more money on extra supplies. CKLA, I was buying tons of stuff. Do this, do this, do this, but you don't have the materials for it. They have the authentic reading, the authentic books that we get, those basal readers, and I know you're not a fan of basal readers. Our children love those basal readers. We have 6 books, 6 readers, 5 lessons in each book, and they absolutely love those stories. I mean, the leveled readers that we have also, we have 5 different levels of readers in there. And I mean, it is so laid out for you to help these children, not having, I'm not having to go find all these things, find this picture card, find this word. But they give us everything. They give us alphabet cards, they give us spelling words, they give us words to know. The stories are so appropriate. CKLA, those stories are so beyond our kids in kindergarten and first, it's unreal. And that. This program just has so much to offer for our kids. I mean, we've taught it this year, along with the other two buildings, and that, who has taught the Heinemann? I mean, you can pull up the research, just like Dr. Bob said. You can pull it up on Heinemann, then pull it up for Journeys too, and let's try and compare them. But this is a nice piece right here also that shows us we're getting a lot with Journeys, especially for the price. And I'm not going around looking for all these pieces that I need to have, or I need a little bit from here, I need a little bit from here. We did that with reading mastery, and then you had a little bit of your own stuff that you had to do. And you just had to keep piecing all these pieces together. This is all complete. It's all right there. So I really hope that you can make it down to our school or one of the other two schools, Northmore or Keller, and listen to some of the teachers there. I mean, I would really love to have any of you, or many of you, to come down. I know some of you came down when we were with the K-8, configuration, but we really would love to have you come down and just take a look at what our teachers are doing down there. I mean, we're so tired of changing programs and curriculums. You get a year, it takes 3 years to really build something up, and so you get a year. I mean, CKLA really just needs, it's not a good program. I mean, it's just, you're constantly looking for pieces, constantly copying things. This is just a complete set. I mean, I don't know how else to stress it other than come to our buildings and see, our first, second, third grade classrooms. I mean, we are right now, our first grade is on the same as Keller and Northmore. We have always been so far apart, lesson-wise and that, and we are right together with them. We are like one lesson apart, and it is so nice for the mobility of our children that they move from one end of town to the other end of town, or even, from here to Lincoln. There's such a mobility in these schools that they need that consistency. It's nice for them to come in, and they understand what we're talking about, and they can catch right in. These kids, especially in the younger grades at K-1, it is so important. I really wish you guys would come down and see us, and I'll see if Tamika Rutherford could maybe have some of you come down.
Thank you, Mrs. Gray. Thank you very much. If I am correctly getting a sense of the board, it seems like a motion to delay until the next meeting is appropriate. If anybody would like to make that motion. All right, it's been motioned and seconded. The motion on the table is to delay item 7, the adoption of the Heinemann K-1 curriculum to our next board meeting, which is May 20th, 2019. Would you please call the roll? Sure.
I want to reiterate that I support what I've heard tonight, but I also recognize the wishes of my colleagues to get some more information and to be able to chew on this a little bit more. And for that reason, I'll support tabling it, but I want to make it clear that what I've heard tonight indicates to me, particularly after Ms. Gray's comments, because the comparison was CKLA's, I believe, not the Heinemann. And so I would agree that what's happening now, and the teachers that I've talked to agree that that needs to leave, and so the replacement of it is something that I support. But I will go along with the board in terms of taking the time that you request to take a look at it.
All right, thank you. Would you please call the roll?
Dr. Davidson after this?
Yep.
Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
Mrs. Ross?
Yes.
Mrs. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Walter?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
7 noes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gifford.
Oh, you're welcome. I'll go now.
All right, that concludes our consent agenda. We have no deliberation items here tonight. So we're presentations and suggestions by board members, any of those for the good of the public. Dr. B.
Apparently, Ms. Jackson says I do. So I guess I do. Regarding the building committee, some time ago, probably late February, we received a formal proposal to name the Roosevelt Magnet School Gymnasium after Coach Lee Powers. And I have that proposal, and certainly anybody can take a look at it. It was written rather eloquently by Brett Elliott, who we saw here tonight. I'm not going to go into the details of this. Suffice to say that there is enough in this formal proposal in terms of Coach Powers' influence at Roosevelt Magnet School and what he has done as an educator, that it fits the more general policy that we have in naming things. However, and so this would be naming of the Magnet School Gymnasium. However, in order to be completely transparent, we thought it a reasonable idea to put time aside to, one, if the public wants to know what the formal request entails, that I could do that. We didn't have a chance, we weren't able to get it onto the agenda in time tonight, which is why I'm doing it now. So I apologize for the rather informal way in which you're hearing about this. So that's where we are in terms of wanting to announce that has been requested. We have not had input other than this formal request from Coach Elliott, or from Brett Elliott. And so what we would request of the public and of our colleagues is by the next board meeting, if you would email either Ms. Jackson or myself with comments, and if you have questions as to what as to why this is being proposed, I can certainly address those and make this available.
Yeah, and the building committee really grappled with this, and it certainly wasn't because we didn't want to name the gym after Mr. Powers. But when we look at our policy, it really isn't all that clear on how to do it. So we wanted to look at it, put it on the agenda and vote on it. And after we review it and get comments from whoever wants to make a comment about it, that we then review our policy so the next time this comes up,
right,
we have a clear understanding of how to do that. There's a policy, but it's really not clear. So, but we thought that it would not be a problem getting it on the agenda and having the board vote on it to go ahead and look at. Neither one of us are opposed to naming the gym after Lee Powers. We just want to make sure the policy is in place because we know it's going to come up again. So, with that in mind.
And what we might want to do is, who's on our policy committee? Where are you? Oh, geez. What might be of some benefit if we have a chance to crosshatch a little bit and have some conversations as to exactly what the details were,
right,
and maybe sit in a committee meeting with you and talk about some of the parameters that we think are missing, that ought to be considered. We certainly don't have. We were not all the be-all of something like this, but we did struggle with, again, not the content of this, but the what-ifs, and what are the constraints on this, and what are the policies. And we have practices, but we don't necessarily have policies on this. And so, anyway, if anybody wants to know, thank you, Ms. Jackson. So if anybody wants to know anything about this, contact us, and we'll be happy to talk to you more about that.
Yeah.
I'm surprised to hear that their policy is not adequate because it came up as a result of something like this. People bringing things to the board, and that was put in place so that it would be a fair and equitable process. not just, the committie had to have the input from the public. More than, one or two people. It's got to be out there somewhere, because I actually sat on that policy committee back when it came up, when people were naming things after people without going through any kind of process. So I'm surprised to hear.
Well, there is a policy in place. We don't think that it fits when we want to name something like a gym or the front door.
I mean, it really
I think we both, and I think that Dr. Bob and I read it, and we thought it wasn't clear enough. And we want to be fair whenever you go to name something after somebody. I think you got to be fair about it, because if you reject it, you got to have good reasons rejecting it, or if you decide to put it in place. So we just think you need to look at it again.
So this is very timely. Mr. Walther and I are in the process of reviewing all policies and updating them. So what I'm going to recommend is that we just, since we don't have anything pressing as far as policy, we shuffle this policy up to the next agenda, and you can attend and we can discuss it there. So.
And Vice President Shaw and Mr. Walther, maybe Daphne, you can see if you can get something from press specifically around this topic to share with the committee, so that they can look at what we have and what's out there, and then see if there's any additional ideas to make what we have stronger and maybe a little bit more specific.
And I know there should be something within the last 5 years when Richwood named a baseball field without any connection with the district administration, and that's when we thought we tightened it up. So there might be something out there like that.
But I think what Dr. Bob and I have said is we like to give people time to talk about it, but go ahead and vote on that, naming the gym after Mr. Powers, and then look at changing the policy.
If you vote on it, it's done.
Well,
we're not voting on the policy. You understand what?
Exactly.
Can you send that justification out to the board so we can review that?
Sure.
And then the policy committee will meet May 16th.
That's mine.
Thursday, May 16th at
Be careful.
3:30.
Mr. Shaw.
Don't give it to Will.
Okay.
My crack research department has said that our policy was adopted in 2005, and it does not match what press has. This is my crack research department. So we will take a
I'm
look
liking
at
the socks
it.
even more now.
So again, that's Thursday, May 16th at 3:30. So those that want to attend.
May 16th, 3:30.
May 16th at 3:30.
Dr. Bob?
Say again, please.
May 16th at 3:30.
This meeting is
Are you
broken
being
out into
professorial,
bedlam.
Dad?
Wait, May?
May 16th, 3:30. In the media room?
Yeah, media.
Okay.
It's the same day you meet at 9 o'clock.
I can meet at 3:30. Oh, wait, I'm in Paris.
You're in Paris?
No.
No, you're not.
Oh my gosh.
Then I'm in Paris with that.
Is there anything else for the good of the public? Any board reports, anything? Nothing? All right. You guys can work your calendars offline. We are adjourned.